Hey guys, it's Charlene. Do you ever wonder what it takes to create the perfect stamping kit? Well, I have a good idea after seeing this set. So today I'm going to show you how I made these 3 cards and tell you all about the new Craft Your Life project kit from Altenew, which is definitely now at the top of my favorites list. So here is the brand new kit. I'm going to walk you through it and I'm going to tell you why I think it checks all of the boxes for a stamp kit. Now this kit has the stamps, the dies, the coordinating stencils, the embossing folder, just like the majority of the Craft Your Life project kits, but here is where Altenew has really taken it up a notch. So you have these 2 beautiful large florals, which are just fantastic, but you can use them together or separately. And this stamp here on the top is a silhouette style stamp. It really opens the doors for all of the different techniques that you can do with this stamp set. So it has these beautiful sentiments as well. And then in addition to our really cool stamps, which I just can't get over how cool they are, you have this lovely layering stencil set. This will fill in all of those images here on that bottom stamp. You also could use it over the top of the silhouette stamp to add some accents, or you could use this stencil all by itself. So many options. There's the coordinating die and you have the main outline die, but you also have this second die that they've included that cuts out all of these little flowers and foliage pieces, opening up even more opportunities for cards. So you could use these all alone. You could use them to complement your stamped image. Here's the beautiful 3D embossing folder, and of course this will line up perfectly with the stamp, so you can do your stamping and coloring, run it through an embossing folder, and then have that additional dimension, which makes a card stand out. Altenew does a fantastic job of giving you examples in their packaging as well as step-by-step instructions. There are also suggested color palettes. They have really stepped up their game. I feel like this kit has so much in it, so let's just jump into making those 3 cards. This large floral image is going to fit perfectly onto an A2 sized card panel that is 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. So let's get our stamp wheel here. I'm going to stamp out this outline stamp. I'll pick it up first with my plate and then ink it up with some jet black fresh dye ink. Now the fresh dye ink is a water-based dye ink, so it's great for alcohol marker coloring, things like that. I'm going to stamp this, make sure I get some really nice coverage, flip over my plate and stamp down the stamp, lift that up. What a beautiful image. Let's go ahead and stamp it a second time since we have our stamp wheel, and that's going to really help darken up all of those lines. Lift that up, just beautiful. Next, I'm going to bring in this amazing silhouette style stamp here. I'll line it right up over the top of my existing stamped image. Then I can lift that up with my stamp wheel plate. Now, because this is silhouette style and I'm going to be using some water-based dye ink, I'm actually going to come in with one of the conditioning erasers from Altenew to help prime my stamp. When you're working with silhouette style stamps, it's really helpful to prime them so that they take the color really well. For my stamping, I'm going to bring in some sea glass, which is this beautiful light kind of aqua color. And I'm going to do the entire image in this sea glass. So I'll make sure to get some good coverage with my ink, flip my plate over and press everything down. And then I can lift it up. Oh, look how pretty. I mean, you can color your image just instantly. It's amazing. All right, I'm going to do a second stamping with the sea glass because I really want to darken up the color and make sure I get any little spots that I might have missed. Lift that up, just gorgeous. Now, here's what I was talking about with the layering stencils. You can do a couple of different things. You can use layering stencil 1 and the top part of stencil 2 to color in all of the various areas of your stamped image if you want. If you want them to be different colors, that makes it super easy. You also, with these stencils, have the option to create a completely different floral bouquet. And you do that by using the A1, B1, A2, B2, and continuing on with the instructions. Now, I'm not going to create that other floral bouquet, but I just wanted to let you know that because it gives you so many more options. I'm going to be adding some accents to our stamped image, and I'm going to use layer stencil 1 and the top of layer stencil 2 to add some shading, and that's going to give us some depth and dimension. I have here my Altenew sticky mat, which is so cool. It's great for stenciling, ink blending, die cuts, all of those kinds of things. I've used it a couple of times now, and it is awesome. So I will line up stencil number 1 here. I just want to make sure I see a black outline all the way around the image, secure it down to my mat. The sticky mat is also great for holding ink pads. I mean, they're not going to move. I've got ocean waves here, and I'm going to be using this to shade the leaf portions of my image. So I'll get some ink here, and then I'm just going to bring it up slightly from the base of these leafy images. I'm just doing a circling motion here with my Altenew blending brush. And then for the petals on my florals, I'm going to bring in some dusk. So I'll get my dusk blending brush here and get some ink on there. I'll start in the center and then spin my way out from the center. That allows it to be darker towards the center of the floral. Also do the tips of this floral over here, really darken those ones up. And then I'll bring in Desert Night, which is very dark, one of my favorite colors. And I'm going to bring that right at the center of my florals to really intensify the darkness of that center area. So going around here, now I can remove my stencil. Looks so cool. I'll add the bottom portion of my stencil here, making sure to line it up and secure it down. I'll do the same thing with the leaves. This time I'm going to bring in the ocean waves again and bring this up from the base of those leaves. So we're just doing kind of a repeat of what we did before. And then I'll switch over here to my dusk and I'll bring it up from the base of this floral to darken that up as well. Bring it in the center going out of this floral, then on the base of this petal here. So just going around to the different florals, making sure I get them. I'll bring in the ocean waves here on this one in the center, and again then bring in my darkest color, which is the Desert Night, and repeat that process of darkening the very center of all of these areas. Now, what's nice about this is if you wanted your petals to be different colors, you could easily accomplish that because these layering stencils make it so that you break out the different petals, and you could do like a light blue and a darker blue, or if you were working with pinks, you could, do a light pink and a darker pink, or even an orange, and really get that different dimension from the colors. Now I'm going to bring in the top of stencil number 2, which is going to fill in these few remaining spots. And I'll start here with the ocean waves will come from the center again out onto the leaves. And I'm actually going to color the center of the large floral here as well with the ocean leaves. I do ultimately change my mind here in a few moments and I make this center part even darker. But the nice thing about these stencils is you can change your mind. If you take them off of your image, all you have to do is line it right back up and you can darken up things. You can add more shading, whatever you want to do to the image. You don't have to get it perfect the first time, which is nice. So this floral here, I'm adding some shading actually around the edges of the petals, which is a little different because I want that floral to look like it's actually kind of the petals are going backwards. So now here's where I decided I want that center even darker and I want a little bit more shading on that small floral. So I'm bringing back in my stencil, lined it right back up, bringing in the desert night and really darkening up the center of the floral. You could have even brought in some black and I think that would have looked amazing too. Now obviously all these blues, teals, colors, aqua colors, they're not your traditional floral, but I love to use different color combinations on my florals. I'm going to dress this up even more by bringing in some glitter paste. So I've brought back in stencil number 1 and I'm going to mask all the areas around the edge so that I don't make a mess because I am known to do that. I've got my glitter paste here. I don't want to bring in too much onto my stencil because this is also going to pick up some of the ink that we already had on there. And I also want this to dry quickly and I want to be able to see through it because this paste will dry clear but sparkly, and that beautiful ink color that we blended onto the floral is going to show through. I'll remove the masking tape and then I'm going to lift up the stencil. Love this part. Here it comes, and you'll see I did get a little bit of ink down there in the corner, but that's okay. I'm not going to stress out about that because I'm going to cut this out with the coordinating die. So I'll set this aside to dry for a moment. Once it's totally dry, here it is, the magic of editing. Bring in the coordinating die. You can see that beautiful glitter there. Cut it out with my die cutting machine and we have this beautiful piece. I did cut out 3 extra die cuts in white and I'm going to layer those up behind our ink blended floral image because that's going to give us some depth and dimension here. I also trimmed off the excess that would be hanging off of my card edge. So now all I need to do is line those edges up. I've put some glue on the back there and I'm going to go ahead and place this in the bottom left hand corner. I did trim off this little flower. Always pay attention to what you have trimmed off because sometimes you can bring it back in and add it to your card. I didn't want to lose this little flower because I like it a lot. So I'm putting it up here so it almost looks like a continuation of the stamp. I've got the Hello Gorgeous sentiment, which is a small sentiment from the set, but it's going to go perfect because we have this big, large floral. When you're working with big, large florals, small sentiments work really, really well. I'm stamping this in the Jet Black Fresh Dye ink. And now we're going to move on to our second card. We're moving right along. Don't worry, we'll review them at the end. For this one, I'm using a piece of the brand new Arctic Mountain Cardstock. Altenew just came out with a bunch of new cardstock colors, and these coordinate perfectly with the Altenew Fresh Dye inks, which is super exciting. I'm very excited to have these. Again, bringing in that beautiful silhouette style stamp here. I can't get enough of it. And I'm going to figure out where I want this for placement because I'm going to be doing some stamping here on each side. So I'll be able to turn my plate and it's going to mirror on the other side in that top right corner what we have down here on the bottom left corner. So I'll pick this up with my plate and then I'm going to bring in some Cloud White pigment ink. This is a gorgeous pigment ink, but when you're working with pigment ink on a really dark cardstock like this, you do need to stamp it a few times to get the coverage that you want. So I've got that nice and covered. I'll go ahead and flip it over and press it down and lift. And you can see it's just kind of faint at first. So we're going to build up that color. I'm going to go ahead and come in here, do a second stamping with the pigment ink. This is why the stamp wheel is so awesome to have, is because you can do multiple stampings really easily. And you can do this kind of mirror stamping that I'm doing really easily. It's starting to come together now, but I am going to stamp it a third time just to build it up. Okay, happy now. Now I'll do the same thing over in that top right hand corner. So first I'm just going to make sure I've got my plate where it needs to be. Then I'll ink up my stamp here and go ahead and flip and press this down and take your time. Sometimes it can be easy to get confused where you need to put your stamp back down again. So don't feel rushed when you're doing this. Last thing you want to do is stamp in the wrong spot. So I went ahead and did this 3 times, and now you can see I have that beautiful look in that top right hand corner. I'm going to go ahead and dry this because pigment ink takes a little bit of time to dry. So I've brought my heat tool in here, making sure it's nice and dry. Now remember that center bonus piece from the outline die? I really like this, and it makes it so that you can add really fun details to a card. So I've cut it out of white cardstock, and then I kind of poked it back into my cutting plate because I wanted to make this super easy on myself when figuring out which die cut went where. So I have there on the negative on the left side, I've put it where I want it over my cardstock, and now I can easily pick up the piece that is on my cutting mat still and bring it over to my negative piece and figure out where I need to pop it in. Once I get it going, it's actually much faster than you would think it is. I mean, it looks like it's time consuming, but really after about the 3rd or 4th piece, I was just trucking along, got the rhythm down, really easy to pick things up with my wax pickup tool and pop it right in where it's supposed to go. Once I'm done, go ahead and remove this, and I do that just by kind of popping the pieces down as I go along. You do want to give it a little time to dry, but look how cool that looks as a little accent. All right, I'm going to trim off the excess on here, and then I'm going to repeat the exact same process in the top right hand corner as well. So there is the top and the bottom. It looks so cool. We are really layering things up and adding some fun things on here. I've brought in another sentiment. This one says, "Hello, lovely." And we're going to white heat emboss this. Pick up the stamp, add some anti-static powder tool down here. We'll stamp with some clear embossing ink, being careful not to press down too hard because we don't want to lose our line work from our sentiment stamp. Then we can come in with some super fine white embossing powder, and I always like to pour twice. Take a moment to remove any excess little pieces of embossing powder hanging around. Make sure your heat tool is nice and hot before you bring it to the paper. So I've melted that on there. Now off camera, I did go ahead and trim down the panel, and I added a nice little white border, and then I put foam tape on the back of it. And then I will add that to an A2 size piece of that same blue cardstock, bring in a little shine with clear enamel dots to some of the centers on our flowers we created, and stamping one of the smaller sentiments from the stamp set in the inside of my card bases. This says, "Friendship is a flower that blooms all season." Very nice. For our 3rd card, I've got my stamp place so that it's towards the bottom right hand corner. Again, the silhouette stamp. We're going to do some ombre stamping. I'm starting here with some sea glass, and I'm going to do this kind of along the top quarter of the stamp. And you guys see I'm mostly using the silhouette stamp because I'm just so excited to have one that I can use with an outline stamp if I want to. But you could use the outline stamp, and you could use watercolor, or you could use alcohol ink markers. So you have all of those options that I haven't even touched on as well with this set. I'll do a second stamping here with the sea glass. I'm bringing in my brush along the edge. Now that's what helps soften that edge so we don't get any harsh lines, and we'll get that nice ombre effect from the light to the dark. Now I'll bring in Ocean Waves, which is the next darkest color. And I'm going to use a little piece of scrap paper here that I have just to help me keep my ink where it needs to go and not up there on the top of the stamp. So I'll do this about another inch, maybe inch and a quarter down onto the stamp. Doesn't need to be perfect, but you can see I'm holding the paper there and kind of moving it as I need to. And then again, I'll bring in my brush, soften that top edge, and then also soften the bottom edge. Flip this over and press. I do decide I want to bring that Ocean Waves up just a little bit higher. So another way you can apply your ink to your stamp when you're doing this is by holding your ink pad at an angle. That'll help ensure that you're getting it where you actually want it to be. And then you can bring in your blending brush and just kind of stipple all over the ink. And that's going to soften up the ink, make it so that you don't get those harsh lines or harsh ink spots anywhere. Flip this over and press it down. This is really starting to take shape at this point. Next, we're going to bring in the dusk. That's the next darkest color. So we've got Sea Glass, Ocean Waves, then Dusk, then Desert Night. A great quartet of inks that work super well together. So here is the Desert Night. We're going to do the same thing, only I'm going to bring it up from the bottom, flip and press and lift, and we'll do it again, lift. And now you can see the embossing folder that I was talking about, how it lines up perfectly with these images, whether it's the outline stamp or this silhouette stamp, it's gonna line up perfectly. Then you just need to run it through your die cutting machine and you're gonna have the beautiful texture from the embossing folder. Remember, you could also cut it out with the outline die and then run it through the embossing folder. So your choice there opens lots of options. Off camera, I stamped out the "You Are Beautiful" onto a 1/4-inch piece of white cardstock, and then I added a very thin border with that same dark blue cardstock we've been using, and I'm popping it up with a piece of foam tape. Remember, small sentiments work so well with big florals. I've brought in some of the Sweet Dreams enamel dots, which go perfectly with this family of inks, and that's going to add that little bit of shine. Hey, remember those die cuts we did earlier? Don't get rid of your negatives. You can use those to create cards lots of different ways. You could put them over a piece of colored cardstock and that would look gorgeous. You could also use them as a stencil, or you could apply a paste through them. It's such a beautiful design. You can use it for a lot. Here are our 3 finished cards. The first one we did with that gorgeous glitter paste. You have all that dimension. Our card that we did with the white pigment ink and the die cuts. I love, love, love this one. So pretty. And our last one here that we did with the ombre stamping. And then we have that beautiful embossed texture. I wanted to mention that this video is part of the September 2024 release hop for Altenew, so check the description for all the details. All right, guys, I hope you picked up some tips and tricks today. Everything I used will be listed in the description below. Please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so that I can continue to bring you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, happy crafting.